Episode, I think, number 3, Industry 45 Quick Spin Show. Shane Christopher Neal and Jeff Salem. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing wonderful. Thank you. How about yourself?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming all the way down from Toronto. It's a long ride. But you come with a purpose because we have a lot to talk about, including this wonderful book you wrote, Finding Success as an Individual Artist.
Thank you.
And you've definitely found success. We're going to talk about that. This show, by the way, brought to you by Krown Rust Control, Niagara Falls. Krown Rust Control, Niagara Falls. Make sure you check them out. Niagara Falls. You ever been to Niagara Falls? In fact, you played Niagara Falls.
Just last weekend.
That's right. I was there. I should know that.
Right behind me.
So you've been a drummer for beginning of time, I think.
I was 13. The day
13.
This is an interesting story. The first day I walked in the music store to buy a pair of drumsticks, Q107 announced September 25th, 1980, on the radio that John Bonham died from Led Zeppelin.
And then you took over for John Bonham. Is that what you're saying?
I wish I did. Yeah.
So let's go. The beginning of the book talks about you growing up and going to music class, playing a clarinet or something.
Played clarinet.
Yeah.
I got stuck on that instrument.
Did you bring the clarinet with you today?
No. But I can go down to the store and rent one, and then it'll clear the building out. It was just it was thrown into my lap. I didn't want to do that. I wanted to play drums. I went home. My parents said, "Hey, what are you doing for music?" Kind of lied. I showed them a pair of sticks. I said, "What? It's loud. It's noisy. Why don't you play the accordion like your brother?" And so I basically convinced them to let me take drum lessons, practice a lot. But in the morning, I went to practice clarinet because I wanted them to think that I was doing well in drums. Because if they saw my report card and they saw that I was failing, they'd think I'd be failing the drums. But they figured it out several months later at a Christmas concert. And they just saw
So what happened? They thought you were going to play clarinet at the Christmas concert?
No, they expected me to play drums.
Oh, they expected
you to play
no
drums. Idea that I was playing. The clarinet was a secret thing.
Oh, okay, yes.
So I would practice that in the morning at school before class and at nighttime, just practicing drums, doing that thing. And I figured by that point, before they found out, I rented a drum set. So I had that kind of like secure drum set in the basement so they wouldn't take it away. So they come to the concert looking at the drummer. I even got the drummer kind of dressed like me. We had these really tacky red blazers. And it took my parents about 5 songs to realize, hey, that's not her son on the drums. He's playing clarinet. And they were fans of the Lawrence Welk show.
Right.
There was a guy named Henry Cuesta, man. He was a bad cat playing clarinet. And so they saw that. They thought, hey, man, he's playing clarinet. And they go, wait a second. He just lied to us for almost 4 months. And yeah.
I have a story about lying about drums. I'm a drummer as well. My dad had a Rogers kit.
Okay.
And I remember growing up and watching Van Halen, double bass, all these drums. And my dad had this basic 4-piece falling apart Rogers kit. So I got into a band. I went down to it wasn't Long McQuaid then, Pongetti's in Hamilton.
Of course, yeah.
I bought double kick, 4 rack toms, 2 floor toms, and I took them to our bass player's basement. And I left them there, and I would just pack up my dad's drums in my car and then pretend like I set them up to play because he would know the difference. Until my dad came to a show, which was at in Niagara Falls at Uncle Sam's.
Oh yeah, of course, remember that.
And I set up this double bass kick and everything.
He didn't know you bought that.
No, my dad's like, "Is that a rented kit up there?" I'm like, "Actually, no, I bought it.
I want it."
See, so I have a similar story about lying about the drums.
Wow, but that's a cool lie. A double bass kit versus clarinet.
Yeah, that's
wow,
a good
interesting.
Time. So where did you feel you got your first big break as a drummer? I mean, you start playing drums. I take it you learned your paradiddles, your flams, and all your stuff. So when did you feel like you got your first big break as a drummer?
Well, I mean, there's always different increments. Like you set these goals, like, you're in high school. Oh, can't wait to play the school dance. Like there's your benchmark there. Then after that, it's like, oh man, we've made it when we play the Gasworks downtown Toronto. Woo! I guess when I finished high school, then I ended up auditioning for a band called Fist, and they had a lot of, big records out at the time. And I was quite young in the band. They actually used to call me Gerber because I was the baby of the band. I was 18 and everyone was double my age. And we went on the road for 9 months. I was away from home for 9 months. We'd play clubs, we'd play festivals, some big venues. And that was hard to get used to.
You thought you made it to something, right?
To something big and stuff like that, and just to be away for that long period of a time. So that was, I guess, the first thing I can say, like, hey, I kind of made it here and stuff like that. But still, you're going to 7-Eleven and eating corn dogs, so you haven't really made it financially. So
then what was the first big name artist or band that you played in?
Yeah, probably from when that kind of fell apart and stuff like that, and then different bands. I was in a band called Saints and Sinners. I mean, it was unfortunately it was short-lived, but there was a lot of investors. There was a big signing deal. We were signed to Frank DeLeo Management, who he managed Michael Jackson. He was in the movie Wayne's World. He was the guy at the end of the movie, Frankie Sharp Records. Also in Goodfellas. Actually, Joe Pesci's the one who kills him at the end of the day. and we flew to New York, signed the deal, and we had a lot of people invested in it, and some great writers. We did some stuff with Bon Jovi. So that kind of was a cool experience. We record at the studio Morin Heights in Montreal. Alden Over produced the album. So that was kind of a cool time. Just experience that.
So move on from there. So now you go to where?
From that band. From that band.
Yeah.
Then different other, like a lot of fill-in stuff. I had an opportunity to fill in shortly for a few months playing with Lee Aaron.
Right.
A Canadian icon, and she's done great. And then a few other little projects I did. I was down in LA as well too, doing some other shows and stuff. But then it got to the point where I just felt like I needed some kind of change or something to challenge myself. And I spent a lot of time as a teenager studying a lot of different genres of music, playing a lot of jazz, working on like reading charts, but I never had a chance to gig doing that type of stuff. So
did you always know how to read music though? Like, did you learn that in school?
Yeah. So I always learned how to read music. And the thing for me is like I auditioned to go to like Humber College, like a post-secondary program, and I got accepted. So this is like late 80s, but then I auditioned for FIS. So it's like, let's see, go to school, be on the road with the band, tour bus, fun times, girls, rock and roll. Yeah. But I promised myself that at least if I did that route, I would try to find a lot of teachers to study with privately. And that's what I did. So wherever I was traveling, I tried to find out who's the local hotshot drummer in town. And if he's obviously was recommended from a university, I would reach out to him. Now, back then, we're talking the 80s. It was hard to reach out to people. There was no email. There was no cell phone, no texting, no like Facebook, no Messenger. Right. You had a number to call, and if that person didn't have an answer machine, you kept trying to call to reach that person.
So you were more, you weren't trying to be a rock star. You wanted to be a good drummer, because to me, back when you were explaining this to me, I know a lot of people that would not be going to look for the number one teacher in town or try to learn more. No. They weren't just living the rock and roll lifestyle. Yeah,
so I would get up early in the morning, explore the town, or take some lessons with some people, because I just felt... I just tried to have a bigger picture. I didn't want to put all my eggs in one basket, because what if that band breaks up? Right. What am I going to do, right? I don't want to go work pumping gas. I mean, I've done a lot of those kind of odds and ends jobs, but I wanted to develop my skill to a professional level. And one of the things I started doing all these cruise ship gigs, which gave me an outlet to start playing all these different genres of music, wearing a tuxedo. I mean, I had hair down to my waist. I literally put it in a ponytail, put it under my tuxedo, and play all these big band, jazz tunes. So that helped me just carve my path into getting
and you still play jazz now, right?
I do. Yeah. I still do that. I mean, if I have to look at all the mileage I have versus playing jazz to playing like rock and roll, I mean, there's, the odometer is heavier on the rock and roll side.
Yeah, sure.
But it's still, I'm very confident to accept the gig if anybody calls me for any like genre of music and stuff like that.
So you wrote this book a couple years ago.
So yeah, I started writing about 2 years ago. Yeah.
And you gave this to me on Saturday and expected me to read it all. I've read most of it.
Well, that's good.
Clearly not accurately, since the beginning of the conversation I had was wrong. But anyway,
that's the family version. I do have the R version of it. No, I'm just kidding.
But it's a great book. It talks about a lot of things. I want to talk about, as a drummer, being consistent. Mm-hmm. And what does that mean to you, being consistent? Because you talked about that in there too.
Yeah. So, here's the one thing I try to let students know, like what differentiates somebody who's an amateur to a professional. Like that's a really important thing. Like an amateur will keep practicing something until they get it right. A professional will keep playing something until they never make a mistake again. Good point. Be consistent with that. So if I go, play that show every night, it's got to be spot on, right? And an analogy I just tell students is like take a professional hockey player. You put me beside Wayne Gretzky. There's a hockey net 20 feet in front of me. Says, let's put the puck in the net. Okay, $10, great. But let's put it in the top right-hand corner every time. So that, I describe that when I'm playing with the band, when I'm hitting the drums, as far as my time, going from one bar to the next bar, can I start the song, end the song, the same tempo, the same velocity, striking. Right.
You play to a click track?
Depending on the song, yeah. Depending on what the gig is. But I would say a majority, like what you saw with playing with Epic Journey, probably about 70% of that I'm running a click. So that way no one can, like I've done gigs live where someone would turn around. I remember playing with Lee Aaron. She goes, "Can you pick it up? It's a little drag." And I'm like, I'm running a click.
Sorry.
Yeah, and even on Saturday playing, like sometimes we play a specific song and the bass player tournament goes, yeah, it sounds like you're rushing there. I go, no, I'm playing a click. It just sometimes certain patterns you can play.
It's not just me. I want you to know, because
exactly.
I've heard the same thing. People say to me, "You're changing the tempo." I'm like, I'm playing to the same click for 10 years.
I mean, how you apply certain rhythms, dynamics can give a false, illusion that you're speeding up or slowing down. See, the two things you'll never hear a singer say to a drummer's tournament goes, "Can you play louder?" Right? "Can you do more drum fills?" Those are two things. But then again, the two bands I do play with, the singers are drummers.
And we're going to talk about that too.
Do you know why I want to play with singing drummers? So they can help me tear down the gear.
Perfect, eh? We're going to talk about Roy after, because what a killer vocalist for Epic Journey. More to the book, though. So one thing that I was told about 2 years ago from Rich Redmond, who's the drummer in Jason Aldean.
Yeah, of course. I know Rich very well.
Rich is a great guy.
Oh, he's a super
and he
guy.
says, you know what? You can be good, but you got to be a cool guy to hang out with.
Of course.
Because if you're on tour, people need to like you. Your band needs to like you.
Yeah.
So talk about that, because it's a big part of being on tour with a band, right?
Exactly. So kind of reflecting back on the book, the whole idea of that book was when I wrote it was, as an artist, describe an artist. Artist could be a magician, juggler, comedian, whatever, figure skater, a chef. So I divided into 4 complete categories to have longevity. Obviously, learning your skill as a person on the instrument. You're going to be a restaurant owner. It's like you have a menu. Hey, can I serve up these dishes every night consistently? Right? So learning your craft. Second is obviously getting along, being a good person, right? And we talked about, you're traveling with a band on the road, you're living together, so you're going to spend more time with those musicians than your spouse. Same like a guy using the comparison, owner in a restaurant, right? Working with the staff. The third thing is, your communication skills, how you get along with people, talking and stuff like that, being responsible, being on time for things, like really important. And that's something that a lot of artists kind of fall short on, that whole flaky artist thing. And just being like together as a person, like trying to live a, clean, healthy lifestyle. I never went down that path, so you don't know any successful drug addicts, right? You remember, you watch these shows, right? You watch these shows about these artists, right? And you see their whole career. And if there's a point, like it's a 60-minute thing and they're 30 minutes in thing, you see they've hit a dark path, they went to rehab. If there's doing something on that artist, at the end they've seen the light.
The Aerosmith's a perfect example.
There's exactly.
Yeah, I know.
Look at Steven Tyler.
Absolutely.
I mean, I remember seeing them back in 1984 when they were the whole band was just completely wasted, and they sounded wasted. They did not sound good.
They are amazing today. Some 2 years ago, just better than ever.
Oh, absolutely.